Mike here at CBI Offroad. Today we're going to be installing a hidden winch mount on T3 Tacoma, along with our push bar with Fairlead. The two do mesh together, so you can use them both, or you can just use one or the other. But let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first step we're going to start with is we're going to start by removing the grill. Ours does have the cruise control stuff on it, so there are a couple connectors, but let's go ahead and there's two 10mm bolts right up top here, and then there's two push clips on each side that we're going to go ahead and remove, and then we can unplug the connector at the top of the grill. There's a small clip right here that we're going to need to just go ahead and pop out, and then our connector is right here. Push down, just got a tab there. That's undone. Now you just lift these up past the small little tabs there, and then grab the grill, and you're just going to pull out, and that'll come right out. All right, so we are going to be removing the entire front bumper for this install. So one of the next things we're going to want to do, we're going to go ahead and unplug this harness right here. And then it's got some small tabs that hold this to this brace across. Two tabs on each side that you just need to pinch in. Once that's off, we're going to go ahead and remove these 6 clips right across the front. Set those to the side. Make sure that's all loose there. Now we'll move on to the rest. So our next step is going to be removing, there's one 10mm bolt right here on the fender flare, and then a small push clip right there. So we're going to go ahead and remove those. And this push clip just turns to unlock, and then you can get underneath it and it just pulls right out. You're going to go ahead and repeat that on the other side. All right, so the next step is we're going to go ahead and finish off by taking all the screws out of the bottom of this bumper. There should be about 6 to 8 of them. So we're going to start on one side and work our way over. So once you got those undone, while you're underneath here, you're gonna have to remove, drop the sway bar. So you can do it one of 2 ways. You can remove your skid plate in order to get to the bolts underneath here, because we have some brackets that are gonna go underneath the sway bar mounts. Or, I mean, you can pull your skid and the small braces and just drop the sway bar out of your way. Either one works. We're also going to have to remove the hook and these 2 small end caps, because that's where our push bar is going to bolt into place. All right, so our next step, we're going to kind of pull the fender liner out and just pull it out of the way so we can get to the back side of the flare, where there's a couple clips that we need to get to. But so doing this clip right here needs to kind of come off of the bumper. Just pop that off there. There's a small one down here that also needs to come off. And just push that out of the way. And then the one that's going to be the most difficult is going to be this original orange one down here. You have to put a little bit of space between those and try and pop this orange clip out and save it, because we are going to need it later. And then once all those are out, this thing should be able to come out of here pretty easily. All right, so next step, there's these couple of small tabs right here that are holding the fender flare on. So we're just going to want to push in on those, kind of pop that fender flare back. That's going to just kind of pop out of there, and there's 3 of them there. And then up top, try to not pop the top out. We're just going to pop the bumper out and kind of slide it past the fender flare. We don't need to remove the entire fender flare. If you do, you're probably going to want to order some clips from Toyota because they tend to break on the ones that are all up here on the metal. So we're just going to pop it out right about there, and then we'll pop the bumper out and we'll slide it past by pulling out on it. All right, so now with our fender flare popped out, there is kind of a small tab that has to be pushed past on the back side where the original screw went through. Once you get that through, you can just kind of pull out on the bumper. That's going to pop these clips out. As you can see, bumper's going to fall off really easily after that. So let's go ahead and hold that, and we're going to go ahead and do the other side. There we go. Our next step is going to be removing this plastic piece and then the metal crash beams here. So this is pretty simple. It's got a couple little tabs. Pull out, push in on that, pull it out. There's another one right there. Comes out, and then there's one right here in the center. Pull that one out, and then that side's out, and then basically just the same thing on the other side. Same exact spots. That piece comes right off. Next, we're going to remove this. There's 3 14mm bolts right in here on each side. So we're going to go ahead and remove those. Once you got those off, you can go ahead and remove that, set it off to the side. Now we have 3 more 14mm bolts on each side. We're going to go ahead and remove those. And you're going to want to keep a hold of these because we're going to reuse these to install our winch mount. All right, so our next step, we're going to take our power steering cooler and we're going to unbolt it from these 2 bolts here. And then we have 1 bolt over here that needs to be removed. We're going to go ahead and remove all 3 of those so that we can then put our brackets on to push the power steering cooler back. All right, so once you got the 3 bolts removed, we got our little tabs here that we're going to reinstall. You do need to keep the 2 of the original bolts that held that in place. So we got our tab here, small nut and bolt and washer. We're going to go ahead and pull this thing kind of out, and the back of the tab is going to go to the original spot where our bracket bolted into place. We're just going to kind of hand tighten that right there. Grab the other one and do the same thing to this side. Once we got those in place, we can go ahead and just push that back, and our tabs are now going to line up with our original holes. Take our original hardware, go ahead and put those in there. Again, we're going to want to leave these just a little bit loose. Don't want them tightened down completely yet, because we do need to adjust this a little bit, because we don't want this power steering cooler to hit our AC condenser. So once we got both of these in here, we're going to go ahead and just pull this forward just enough just to clear this AC condenser. And once we do that, then we can go ahead and tighten this stuff down. All right, so once you got your power steering cooler in place where you want it, we can go ahead and tighten the 12 millimeters down. Once those are in place, now we can go ahead and tighten down our hardware that's holding it on the back. All right, so now we can tighten the back hardware. They're going to be a 7/16 head. Tighten that down. And once that's all done, that should be nice and secure and in place. And we can move on to the next step. All right, so our next step, these small little round tabs here connect to the body mount. These are going to be in the way of our brackets that come forward. So you can either just bend these over out of your way, or you can just kind of cut them right here. We're going to cut them so you can see how we do that. Or again, you can just bend them over out of the way. All right, once you got those cut, we're just gonna go ahead and spray a little bit of spray paint on them, just to make sure to help keep them from rusting. Just do that real quick. All right, so our fender liner is kind of gonna be in the way, so our brackets are gonna be coming right up to here. So we're gonna go ahead and just kind of trim this little section out right here so that our brackets make it through easier. We don't have it pushing the fender liner out, anything like that. So let's go ahead and trim that. Like that. Now we'll have plenty of room for our brackets to make it through there. All right, so once you got all that stuff done, everything trimmed out of the way, we can go ahead and put our hidden winch mount on.
Right on there.
Yep. Hold that real quick. A couple bolts. All right, so once we got our winch mount and the winch in, obviously do need to install your winch prior to installing the winch plate. But after that, it's pretty simple. With everything exposed, you can go ahead and wire your winch up. If you are using a Warren Xeon, you do have to get a relocation kit for it, because it does not fit underneath here with the solenoid box. So we have some brackets that we make that we're going to relocate ours right here. We'll show you that once we get to it. We got our side support brackets. These ones are for a remote reservoir. If you're using like an Icon or something, we do make them as options. Otherwise, you're going to get some that just basically just don't have that on there. They're just going to be flat. So we're going to put those on. There is a clip here that is covering the hole for where we're going to pass through the frame. There is a clip on each side, so we're going to knock those out, and then we'll go ahead and put these in. All right, so in order to put these on, we do have some hardware that comes with it. There's going to be 2 long 4-inch bolts with a flat washer and nut, and so those are going to be the ones that pass through the frame. So let's go ahead and set those in there. Then just hand tighten that. If you do have a lift on your vehicle, you may have these right here. They're just a sway bar drop bracket. They're gonna just sandwich right back up between our plate, and we can put these back on once we got our plate in place. All right, once your drop brackets for your sway bar are back in place, we're gonna go ahead and put our sway bar back up. Go ahead and thread the front one in, because that's where your slot on your sway bar factory mount should be. Put that in. Put the new supplied hardware back in place. We can go ahead and start tightening up some of our other side support brackets, our front bolts here. We would put our lower bolts in at this point too if we were only doing the hidden winch mount, but we are going to do our push bar on the outside as well, so we do need to leave these open. But again, if you're just doing hidden winch mount, you can go ahead and put those back in. When you go to tighten these down, you're going to want to tighten down your winch mount first. So tighten all your front bolts here. Also make sure that your winch mount is butted up against the bottom of this cross member of the frame here. And then you can go ahead and tighten your side support brackets into place. All right, so once we got everything bolted down and secure in place, we're gonna go ahead and set the bumper back on. And from the back side, we're gonna mark our holes for our Fairlead holes. We will drill those, and then we'll take our Fairlead and we'll put our Fairlead onto the outside of the bumper to mark the center section of the Fairlead where the rope goes through. And then we can pull that back off and we'll cut that. You don't need to put everything back on, just get the bumper clipped into place, because we're going to end up pulling it back off to cut everything anyways. Once we got the bumper back on, I'm just going to take a Sharpie. I'm just going to reach my hand down in there, just kind of feel where our Fairlead holes are, kind of mark them out, and then we'll pull the bumper back off and we'll go from there. Once you got your holes marked from the inside, we can go ahead and pull the bumper back off, drill our holes, and we'll keep going from there. All right, so we got our bumper back off. We have our marks right here for our holes for our Fairlead. So we're gonna go ahead and drill those out first, and then we're gonna take our Fairlead and we're actually gonna set it on there, throw some bolts through it. We're gonna mark our hole for our Fairlead line to run through. We'll cut that out, and then we'll put the bumper back on. We got our holes drilled. We're gonna take just our hardware, put it through our Fairlead. We're just gonna set it in there, kind of center it where you think it's gonna be, and then we're gonna go ahead and trace it with the Sharpie again, and then we'll cut the holes out. All right, in order to cut these out, I'm gonna go ahead and take my step drill bit. You can just use a large drill bit, whatever you need. And I'm gonna start just at these outside. I'm just gonna drill all the way through. This one goes up to about 7/8. We may need to take it a little bit bigger than that. But I'm going to drill all the way through so I have 2 starting points to then connect the 2 holes, and then we'll finish off the Fairlead hole after that. So in order to connect these 2 holes, I'm just going to use a small reciprocating saw. Really, you could probably use a razor blade. It might just take a little bit more time if you don't have, access to some power tools and things like that. But we're going to go ahead and do this just to make it quick and easy. So I'm just going to use a razor blade to just kind of clean this up, finish this hole, make it just a little bit larger. Should be pretty easy with everything being cut now. Slides right through it pretty easily. All right, now that I got these edges cut out, I'm just going to use a round file and just clean up the rest of this real quick, and then we should be good to go. So once your holes are all there and you're satisfied with the way they look and everything, we can go ahead and put our bumper back on. If you're doing a synthetic winch, more than likely you're going to have to install the rope itself prior to. If you're doing a cable winch, most of the time they're already spooled. So if you are doing a synthetic, you're going to want to put your cable in first on the winch before the bumper's on. And then we're just going to take our cable, we're just going to run it right through our hole. We'll just pull that right through, and then we'll put our bumper on after. Once we got our cable ran through, our bumper back on, we can go ahead and start putting all of our clips and everything, just securing the bumper back on as long as you are done and you don't think you need to pull the bumper back off for any other kind of fitment issues or anything. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and just start putting the bumper stuff back together, secure it in place. All right, so once you got your bumper all secured back in place, we're going to go ahead and finish relocating our solenoid box. It's just going to mount right in this area. Like I said, we do have some brackets that we're going to put in there. If you have a non-Xeon, most of them will mount off to the side of the winch. And if you have that option, go ahead and mount it off to the side. Never mount it in the center on the Tacomas. Just because this middle brace right here that helps hold the bumper and the grill and everything all in place. But with the Xeon, you do have to get a relocation kit with some extended wires and things like that. All right, so we're getting ready to put our push bar on with our hidden winch. So we're gonna start off with these two bottom bolts, which are gonna go right through in the same spot with the hidden winch mount. It's gonna bolt up in place, and then we'll put our faceplate on. As you can see, we already have our rope pulled through this. So we'll go ahead and put this up there, and then we'll get on to the next step. These two bottom holes are what we're gonna mount up first in here. We have a nut, bolt, 1/2 inch, and so we're gonna go ahead and slide the nut in through this little hole in the side over here. We'll show you in a second. And then once we get this up there, we can put the bolt through. All right, so before we get ready to put our faceplate on, we need to install our little J hooks here. Gonna be 5 of them that are all gonna come right there, and then there's 3 right here across the bottom. So we'll go ahead and install those real quick. So we got our J hooks in. Put our rope through our front faceplate and our Fairlead. So now we can set our faceplate up here, put it into our J hooks. Be using our 1-inch button heads, and they are going to be a 7/32 Allen. Set this up. All right, so we got the faceplate on. I have 1 bolt started for the Fairlead. I'd put the other one in. Depending on what kind of winch and stuff you get, you may get some nuts like this just to make it look a little cleaner on the outside. But we're gonna go ahead and fit the other one through from the other side, put the nut on. All right, so once we got our faceplate on, we got our winch Fairlead on, and we're gonna go ahead and tighten those together, and the faceplate and the front of our winch tray are gonna sandwich together and hold everything together up on top. All right, so that pretty much takes care of the push bar with the hidden winch mount setup. All we have left is we're gonna spool our winch up. Like I said before, if you have a synthetic, you're gonna have to spool it. If you have a steel cable, it's probably pre-spooled for you. But that really takes care of everything. If you have any questions or concerns, give us a call here at CBI Offroad or email us.